Join us as we celebrate a film that was positioned as the Star Wars of the 80s, based on a can't-miss toy line and featuring a tour de force performance by Frank Langella. We're talking about the flawed masterpiece, Masters of the Universe. Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. We've got not a full room, but this is a nicely packed room.
Mm-hmm. We do.
Welcome, Albanians on both sides.
Welcome. We got the professor, Nick Leshy, on board with us tonight. Welcome,
Glad
sir.
to be here. Thank
and
you.
Roland Yarucci, filmmaker extraordinaire.
Yes,
writer,
host
director.
of the Ready Speaker podcast. You can it's a video podcast. You can check that out on YouTube. We'll drop a link in the show notes. Go check it out. He puts out a lot of great content. Like I said the last time he was on the show, it's the highbrow stuff, the stuff that we don't touch that highbrow stuff.
Wow. I've got a lot of brow.
Hey, so do I. I feel you, brother. I feel you.
You silhouette a lot better than I do.
Nick and I will make up the non-follically challenged faction of tonight's podcast. We've got the hair. Nick and I.
For now.
Nick Leshy is the blogger extraordinaire. He's got the City of Kick Entertainment blog, so we'll drop a link for that in the show notes as well. It's great to have you guys on board.
Great to be here. Always.
Yeah,
always
thanks
fun.
for making
Always
the
fun.
time. We appreciate it. And you can check us out on 3324 podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And we've got a great, fantastic group of people going there. It's a great, fun atmosphere. You can post. You can kind of interact with us. That's where we hang out. It's like the street. It's like the new street corner. No,
Sure.
Roland?
Yes. I have bags and matching shoes for my corner.
Yeah, we got the barrel with the fire in it, and we're all standing.
That's it.
around.
We're
There
ready.
you go.
New York
That's what
has
we
it
need.
should
We need that as a
New York as it should be.
somebody
That's
needs to
what social
paint
media
that.
is.
Yeah, we need the range
That would
soaked
be
street
great.
with the neon light there hanging.
Yes.
Or some dudes standing there under the street light.
Trying to keep
We're
warm with the
just
barrel
sharing
and
a pizza,
fire.
a box of pizza.
That's
right,
That's our group. That's what we're like. So come and hang out by the barrel and keep yourself warm. So we've got an interesting movie that we're going to talk about. And the more research I did, the more I've become intrigued with the film. And it is Masters of the Universe from 1987. Just let me roll through the stats first, and then we'll kind of talk about this film. Released in August of 1987, directed by Gary Goddard. Budget was $22 million, which is not bad for the company that put this film out.
Yeah, Canon.
Canon Films, that was a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
The box office was only $17.3 million. It did not even make back its budget. Music by Bill Conti, which is very interesting because it sounds like it's done by John Williams.
Odd choice. Yes.
Very much so.
He very much was going for the Superman theme.
Yeah.
Like when this movie comes on, you think, okay, this is gonna be it sounds like Superman. So is this John Williams?
Even the opening credits are very Superman the movie.
Yeah,
come on. It is Superman. The opening bars, I mean, it's completely,
it's got that. It totally has the DNA of a lot of films in it, and they starting with the credits.
Well, Bill Conti, I think he's used to working cheap. I think
he worked so cheap that he only wrote the music. He didn't even conduct any of the orchestras.
Yeah,
that's how cheap Bill Conti worked on this.
But otherwise, I liked it though. I liked the soundtrack. I thought it was fitting. It worked really well.
Yeah, definitely fitting.
Yeah,
it's got that that epic or attempted epic sound. Of those. The Indiana Jones score. It's got that big fanfare type thing. It starts off trying to kind of get you in the mood. I think the opening title, score kind of tries to set the tone for it. Like, oh, this is you're in that ballpark of Superman, Star Wars, Raiders.
Mm-hmm. Even Star Trek, original Star Trek series.
Yes. It's got a little bit of some Star Trek DNA. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely that feel of that.
When you're going to steal, you steal from the best. And this guy, they robbed everybody. They robbed Peter Paul.
They just grabbed it, tumbled across the floor, and that was it.
We'll take some bars from this. We'll take some bars from that.
No doubt.
bars from this. So
no doubt
here,
about that.
this is based on the it's based on the Mattel toy line. Okay, but there was also a cartoon going on by Filmation at the time too. So that's some of what we're going to talk about is the diverging road there. This was decidedly after I was not a Masters of the Universe fan. I had aged out of that already.
Yeah.
But I did see it in the theater. Roland, did you see this in the theater?
No, I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it at home because I don't know. I've mentioned other shows. I was a Supers kid, so we had free HBO. Yeah. So I saw it at home, and my younger brother, he was a He-Man fan. So I remember in high school, and we had to watch it because we only had one TV. Again, we're Supers. We only had the one TV we could find. So somebody else got rid of. So and we would watch it. But so I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, definitely interesting. Rewatching it again and seeing where it played and where it came from. It was kind of interesting choices they made with the scenery, the setting, the outfits, how true they were is surprisingly true to the animated series. With the outfits.
A little bit of both. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that. Mattel had a heavy hand.
Yeah.
In the production of this. So Nick, what about you? Was it something you saw way back when?
I saw it
Nick Lushy.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. I went to see it, and I had high hopes.
How'd that day go for you? Did it go well, or is it?
As a kid, I remember being disappointed. I didn't like the stuff set on Earth. I'll be honest. Back then,
yeah.
I hadn't watched it since then. I rewatched it, and I'll be honest, I liked it better now.
Okay. I didn't mind it,
but I loved the stuff on Eternia, and I loved I was like, just set it all there. Why do we have to go to Earth? Why do we need to follow this? But so yeah, I was disappointed as a kid for some reason. Maybe I wanted more of the characters too. Like there was a bunch of them that went in. Then I thought maybe they were going to bring in more. You could just tell it was low budget, especially now looking back. We'll talk about it. There's elements where you could see they had no budget. Like there's nobody in all this stuff is happening, and there's nobody looking out the window like what's going on. There's nobody in the streets. So you could tell it was done in like a lot.
The sets were empty. Eric, what about you?
Yeah. I actually don't remember.
You didn't see it with me in the Galleria in White Plains?
We might have seen it together. I want to say that we saw it with
our friend Dwight and Johnny.
With our friend Johnny, but didn't we bring his little brother? Because I know Johnny was he was a huge fan, and because his little brother, Johnny would get him all the figures, and he would play with them. So I'm pretty
sure we all saw it together in the gallery.
Yeah, that's probably the case. But
on the first level, there used to be a movie theater of the gallery in White Plains, Westchester County, New York. Just so you can kind of pinpoint it if you're going to go to Google Maps.
Yeah,
there used to be a movie theater in the first floor, and I believe we saw. I know I saw it there, and you were more than likely there. So same thing as Nick. I only knew from He-Man, like you see the figures. I never watched the cartoon. Like I said, by then I'd aged out of it already. But I was going to see the film just because it was sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah. Well, at that point, we saw everything. Yeah. Right. In the 80s, we just went.
Yeah. 87, we were just going.
It was most likely the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes the shittier, the better. Something like we were.
Oh yeah.
Back then, we were looking for shitty movies too. Sometimes, like this looks really bad, so let's just go see it.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's one of those ones. What I did is I sent an email out before this episode, and I asked everybody if you're going to rewatch it, try and kind of forget the reputation, because it's got a reputation, and you go on Rotten Tomatoes and everything. It's like, oh, this is just a really it's cheesy, it's low budget, it's this, it's that, and the other thing. And I wanted to kind of reapproach it myself, much like Nick. Those first, your first impression usually hangs with you for a while, well, unless something drastic happens to really kind of change your mind about it. So I challenged each one of us to watch it again and try and put all that aside. Roland, did that change anything?
It did actually. I mean, there's a few things. Some things, I didn't appreciate. Some things I really appreciated. Like Nick said, some of the effects and locations. Yeah, you can see there were budget constraints. But Frank Langella as Skeletor did an amazing friggin' job. And I don't know if it's because he covered his face and he was allowed to really be what he wanted to be with it. Mm-hmm. And maybe that played something into it. He didn't have to be Frank Langella. He just had to be this character. But he did an amazing job. And Dolph Lundgren, I still can't get over how handsome the motherfucker is. I mean, I'm like, you son of a bitch. Yeah. Why are you genetically so perfect?
Yeah. It was only his second film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Frank Langella took the role because his kid was a big He-Man fan. And he took it seriously. Now that makes the difference because we've seen a share of campy or really cheesy films where the villain is chewing up the scenery. Frank Langella is doing something different. He's taking the material seriously, right? And I think that's what's also been rediscovered about this film is Frank Langella's performance. Because in some of the stuff I was looking at, the director actually said, we put this film on the back of Frank Langella because we knew he was the actor. Dolph Lundgren, this was only his second film. He wasn't a great actor. Mm-hmm. So they really tried to position the film from Skeletor. Frank Langella plays Skeletor, by the way. I think we need to go through hang on, let's go through this because we're talking about a film that people might be like, what? Let's just run down the
and it's a great cast.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This is based on the toy line from Mattel. You've got Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. That's his name. Frank Langella as Skeletor. Courtney Cox, only her second film, but really this is her debut as Julie. The fantastic in the Murray Hamilton Hall of Fame, James Tolkien as Detective Lubick. Christina Pickles as Sorceress. Meg Foster, another great 80s actress as Evelyn. Chelsea Field as Tila. John Cipher as Man-at-Arms, Billy Barty as Gwildor, and then we'll stop it at Robert Duncan McNeil as Kevin.
Harris from Voyager.
Voyager. Yeah. Yep.
In this film, he's kind of like a Michael J. Fox, Andrew McCarthy hybrid.
Yeah.
He's bringing like the Michael J. Fox kind of thing, but then he's kind of like Andrew McCarthy-ish as well.
Remember the kid from Caddyshack?
Yeah.
He reminded me of him and that sort of
energy. That kind of like 80s guy that was just kind
definitely.
Of somewhat generic, but he kind of had some.
Yeah, wanted to go to community college, maybe have a band. That's pretty much
he's in
his
a band.
Vibe.
He's just kind of banging around and not really doing much.
Yeah.
So you've got He-Man. So you've got Dolph Lundgren, fresh off of Rocky IV, where Nick, if he had a page of dialogue in that film, it might have been a lot.
Yeah, and I think that was my biggest disappointment. Like he didn't really have much to work with, right? He didn't have a lot to work with, and they were even going to dub over his vocals, but they were like, "Oh, he memorized the lines," which I'm like, it wasn't a lot of lines to memorize. How could But so yeah, that was.
Canon Films famously was, the director was like, this guy Dolph Lundgren is just a mess. He can't, they went into ADR 5 times. Because Canon Films, the producer distributor said, you're not dubbing him. Like, figure this out. And Gary Goddard, the director, he goes, I found somebody that's perfect. He did it and it was perfect. And Canon Films like, no, go back, get this figured out. And it took like 5 times till they finally got something decent out of Dolph Lundgren. So he's, Dolph Lundgren is the weakest point of the film, Eric. Is that agreed upon?
I do agree.
Not the worst part, he's just the weakest part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And you've speaking of Langella, you feel like the entire budget went to that set of his throne room where all the great costumes. Edith Head, by the way, who was uncredited, famous costume designer. I didn't know this, but she did most of the costumes for this film, which blows my mind because she's famous for elegant, extravagant, old classic movies and that kind of thing. But she wasn't. I don't know whether or not she was embarrassed or didn't put her name on this thing. I have no idea. But anyway, it's funny to me though. Like everybody is really. I mean, nobody really looks like the toys. Okay, I mean, everybody has a very specific look in the toys. You have all these characters, and He-Man he's like the only one that resembles the figure.
Yeah,
he's the only one that looks like a barbarian. Everybody else is like dressed in clothes, like even Tila and Man at Arms. She's supposed to be scantily clad. She's got a full body suit, a whole armor, all this stuff, and like He-Man is just He-Man with a cape, which was it was kind of odd. It was kind of odd. I kind of feel for the kids, I think, a little bit, because they were expecting probably the toys. They wanted more of those characters, and there's just just a few. But then then they had all these other characters that we've never seen before. So but we'll get to that. But
well, the plan. I mean, the plan is Mattel. He-Man was riding high, so Mattel was like, we want to strike while the iron's hot. They put the feelers out for who wanted to make a movie, and they had some bites. Yeah. But Canon Films kind of put the deal they made with Mattel is, we'll go 50-50 on the budget, but you put up your half first.
Yeah.
so they said to Mattel, like, okay, we'll go halfsies, but we need your half first. And as a result, Mattel was like, well, we want this, He-Man is, like Erica's saying, He-Man is a kid's thing, so nobody can die. No characters can get killed off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no characters can get killed off. No smoking, no drinking, no bad things. Basically hamstringing what was supposed to be positioned as this sci-fi movie, but with Mattel saying, "Listen, you want our money, we're going to have some say in this." So you kind of you're trying to serve two masters, as it were, of the toy company that owns the IP, and they're putting up the money, so now they have a say, versus the director who was trying to make this, and that's why he said it. The director Gary Goddard said all the army, the minion guys are all dressed in black. They look like black stormtroopers. He goes, those are robots, because that was the only way we could get Dolph Lundgren to shoot them and kill them if they were robots.
Because they weren't.
So they weren't. He's like, they weren't stormtrooper ripoffs. We had to make them quote unquote robots. So we could kill them.
Kind of like the Transformers cartoon, where again, or the G.I. Joe cartoon, where nobody dies in the cartoon, right? Like that, everybody's like just jumping out of a plane. You see the plane explode, but there's always a parachute.
Yeah, and all of them live.
And they all live. That was the thing, because kids, would be traumatized by that. Yeah. But that makes sense. But don't they? Those blacks, they kind of look like they kind of remind me of the robots in Black Hole, right? Reminiscent. Remember the Black Hole, the Disney film? They kind of look like that as well. So it was kind of odd.
Well, the artist Mobius did concept work on this too. So they had They had a lot of heavy hitters.
Yeah.
On this film, it's just, and that's the thing about the film, I think, is that the budget betrayed them. Like, the ideas were there, and when I revisited the story, Nick, tell me if you think about it. Like, it doesn't take place on Eternia, okay, but the story actually isn't. It's kind of two stories. You've got the Earthbound characters with the parents are gone, and kind of they get thrown into it, and then you've got the obsession of Skeletor. On a rewatch, if you kind of take it from that, I'm like, it's not really that bad of a story. I think they got betrayed by their budget.
The budget is definitely a problem, but story-wise, I think the big flaw is He-Man is just underserved. And I think part of it is Mattel saying you can't really flesh him out by making him human and having flaws, right? But if you're going to set him up as, the yin to the yang.
I agree with you, Nick. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Everything you said, Nick, is very on point.
Spot on.
We're not sure what it was, but Nick is having some technical
one word if I can.
Thank you.
It's very Nick is having some technical difficulties. Hopefully that makes it into the show. What he's
I hope so.
Thank you.
But
I agree with you, Dean. I think the budget. I think it should have been probably 50 to 100% more. If it was 24, it should have probably been around 50 million budget. Probably expanding even the time, even though it's an hour and 47 minutes, I think, with credits and everything. Mm-hmm. I think there was more story there that we sort of like missed out on. That's what probably gives it that flat feel of, essentially a preface of like what's happening. That's why they go to Earth. They probably should have been more of the background, why they hate something. In my mind, Skeletor and He-Man dated at one time, and it was the worst breakup ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, that was what you were, I mean, that's what everybody wanted was He-Man versus Skeletor, and you didn't really get that.
Yeah.
You got them on opposite sides of the screen, but
there's good moments in it, though. There are really good moments in it.
I think the movie kind of probably could have, had they had like kids in it, you know, I think that would have served.
Yeah.
Well, but think about it. It's like, I mean, I think they're trying to, you know, bringing these characters to Earth was obviously a thing for kids to really, my God, you know, He-Man's coming to Earth, you know, like kind of thing. So that's really, really cool. So they're battling on Earth. So that's awesome, you know, so, but yeah, the absence of like any children or any, you know, in this thing, and it just, you know, these two characters. I
actually agree with you that it probably, because, you know, when going to movie, characters give you an expectation. So once you see a couple, especially in the 80s, where anybody who was the Courtney Cox and the guy Duncan's age, they probably would have been in some sort of frat house at some point. Because that's just what everybody expected.
Yeah.
Well, that's younger kids.
I think those two characters kind of split the difference between kids.
True.
And adults.
Yeah,
they're kind of like in high school,
more towards college than.
Yeah, they're graduating.
But the movie for me kind of took on like, what is it supposed to be now? Right. Is it a sci-fi thing? Is it are we going for the John Hughes crowd now with the young couple here, like, you know, 80s, you know, vibe, the clothing, you know, what is this supposed to be? You know, and I feel like, you know, with the writer, who also wrote Dark Crystal, he added those those extra fantasy elements to it. So it was kind of like we're going above and beyond even the toy line now, because we're creating brand new characters. Gwildor, I never heard of him before. Like, he's a brand new character.
He was the replacement for Orko, I think.
Yeah,
Orko was in the TV show, but he wasn't a character, so they kind of.
And there's no way they could have pulled him off live action.
No, those lo-fi effects.
Horrible.
The effects were pretty rough. The effects were pretty rough. They were 1960s effects to me. I mean, that's the only thing that sort of pulled me out of it. A lot of the lasers.
They were okay. Some were bad. Like when He-Man was on the flying disc.
Yeah,
and he was like a static image, and you were kind of moving him over the buildings, like when he was flying. It was kind of like frozen.
The shots were very. Going back to like Star Trek. Yeah, you remember that? I forgot the episode with that glowing thing. That's so like all omnipotent of the many episodes of Star Trek.
Which one had the omnipotent?
It felt like that
character.
Yeah, like it felt almost like that a couple of times, where it was like literally just like hard pasted over the video.
I like the effect of the key. You know, when they would open up the portal.
Yeah.
Like when Skeletor came through, very much Star Wars. He's sitting on a throne like the Emperor with kind of a design behind him.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Like from Return of the Jedi, it was very much like the Emperor at the.
But then it kind of took on. It looked like it was a parade, like a night parade. It's like they're just coming down the street, and you know,
he's so fancy.
That was kind of cool.
And nobody was in the street. Nobody saw
it happen. Except all the East Coast New York cops who happened to be in the middle of America.
Do you know why no one was in the street?
No budget.
No overnight parking.
No overnight parking.
There's no car. There's no overnight parking in that town, so everybody was off the street.
Everybody's off
the street. No, but like what it is about this film is like there's something there, and I think there's enough there to like grab onto. Like, despite the you know, I don't blame the script. Some of it might be the effects and the budget, because once they went through once Canon went through Mattel's budget, Mattel said, "Okay, it's time for your half." Canon's like, "Well, we don't really have it. Can you put the rest in?"
Yeah,
and they were literally like like some days at the end of the shoot, the people were like, "If we don't get paid, we're not working."
Yeah.
And the director would be like, "You're here. Let's just finish the day. We'll get the money."
Yep.
By the end of the day, and by hook or by crook, they were literally trying to make payroll week after week. Like that's what this movie came down to. So you kind of have to respect what, you know, working with what they had. Yeah. And the fact that they got as far as they did, they got down to the end of the film. At the, you know, when He-Man takes the sword out and says, "I have the power," and him and Skeletor clash their swords, and it kind of gets all bright. Yeah, the director did that on purpose, because he said, "They're shutting us down," and he goes, "I need a last shot And then a month later, he got some money and he came back in, and that's why at the end, the set is darkened, and there's no one on the set because it was just those two people. He had enough money and a skeleton crew to come in and shoot an improvised ending. They kind of did some basic choreography.
Yeah.
And shot that last fight with like the mood. It makes it look like it was an artistic choice.
And it was a good ending.
Everybody's gone from the set and it's just them, but there was no money left. He literally had a skeleton crew of people. We got to shoot an ending.
Yeah.
We have one day to do this. And they literally
did that. And it was
day.
a decent ending. It was a good battle.
It was close enough. You know,
it was close enough. Definitely. I actually like the golden costume, all that stuff. It came out really well. Again, we're talking about budget constraints, and I think that is the most impactful for this film. You have a lot of close-ups, so it's not opening up the world at all.
Yeah.
So even on Earth, you really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, the choreography and Dolph Lundgren were probably the weakest points.
Yeah, like his battle scenes were very Kirk-esque. Even though he was an MMA fighter.
Yeah, very slow. For a guy that big, it was very. He wields that sword's pretty slow. He's not really in a hurry.
No, he's not. Even his drop kicks are like 2 feet in the air and soft landing.
He's like 7 feet tall, so his kick is gonna his knee kick is gonna hit you in the head.
Tall.
Yeah, not like no comparison to Arnold and Conan when he's
no.
Oh my God, when he's whipping that sword around.
Very clunky with it. So if there's a weak point,
and that's where you feel like at least for me, that's where I feel the constraints really land the hardest. Like I said, it's a lot of close-ups, some bad edits with the back and forth dialogue because that's what they had. That was the coverage they could get. Like you're saying, just running.
By the way, gents, I don't know if you guys seen this or not. There's a really great documentary. Now that we're talking about canon, there's a great documentary about canon films called
I need to watch
Boogaloo. It's on Netflix, I believe. I don't know if it's still there, but it's really interesting. It's like Dean mentioned that they couldn't put up the money. That's the documentary. It's all about how
there's more there.
How shitty this company is. Like
basically,
the things they had to do. Right.
Basically, this film in Superman 4,
Superman 4, Supergirl.
That's what killed canon. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what killed canon.
Basically killed them.
Now, even you take this film, you take the storyline, the plot, the worldview. I mean, without this film, you wouldn't have had. We're not going to make the comparison of quality, but you wouldn't have had the themes thematically or style-wise of having a real ensemble group. Even though He-Man is the lead here, it is an ensemble group.
Yeah.
Of like, you wouldn't have the MCU. You wouldn't have even Marvel. They wouldn't have made that jump into modern cinema because up until this point, Marvel was really just Spidey on TV every Wednesday. And the Hulk with Lou Ferrigno. And they couldn't get past that.
True that.
Yeah, and oddly enough, two years later, Dolph Lundgren would make The Punisher, which I really actually liked that film.
Yeah.
So even that, they held him back.
That one as well.
They held him back in that one. Yeah, they held him back in that one. They wouldn't even let him wear a T-shirt with the skull on it. You know. So
no, they actually what they did was very interesting. They did it in the lighting when they show his face. There are scenes in that movie where they
kind of darken his cheeks.
It's darkened his cheeks to resemble like a skull. Like his face would, like in certain camera angles, it looked like a skull. Like if you saw it, which was interesting.
More real life. Yeah. That's more real life. I can deal with that. Yeah.
But
without this movie, I don't know if it would have went. I don't know if we would have seen those movies without this movie.
I think Roland makes a good point, but and also surrounding Dolph Lundgren with an ensemble cast, right? It allows him to kind of be a Drago. Like he doesn't have to say much. He's there for his physique. The other characters like Man-at-Arms and Tila can really kind of get the story points across. Like they can kind of get the story points across. We have to show some love. I'm sorry for James Tolkien.
He was,
of course.
You don't know who James Tolkien.
This guy. This guy had
better than Back to the Future. His role.
Let me tell you this.
I don't know about that.
In this,
James Tolkien hit the trifecta. In 1985, he does Back to the Future as the principal. 1986, he does Top Gun.
Top Gun as
in 1987, he does Masters of the Universe, and he is playing the same fucking character in each one of them.
Why wasn't he in Copland?
He's playing cousins
busy for
of each one of those characters. Each one is a cousin.
Yeah.
They have the same grumpy, like attitude. I love James Tolkien. I love James.
He's fantastic. Yeah, of course.
Nobody takes pot shots at Lubick.
And then they bring him back.
I got you on assault. I got you on arson. I'm going to put you away for 850 years if you don't start talking.
You'll be flying a cargo plane, rubber dog shit out of Hong Kong. If you know,
he is the same character in those 3 films.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then they bring him back to the Future too, where he's even a much darker character, right? With the shotgun, it's like armor. It's like post-apocalyptic. Yeah. You know, it's
such
crazy,
a treasure.
but he's so great.
Treasure.
Yeah, so
James
great.
Tolkien.
Yep.
And he's still around.
Yeah,
he's 91, and that's why I think I think when I saw Top Gun Maverick, I was expecting, but they basically got Ed Harris as James Tolkien.
Like he was the same character. He might as well have been the same character, but you know.
But just like that guy is such a real, like he seems like a relative or someone that's in your family, like that guy, right, Nick?
And then the end, what a perfect ending for his character. He's like, he doesn't want to go back home. Do you don't think he'll miss the World Series? He said, right?
What am I going to go back there for? I got a grade, and the woman's feeding him grapes. He's got like the young woman on his arm. He's like, I'm not going back.
Like I was joking before, I think before Gods, it's always funny to me how, you always have in that era, you always had a New York, New Jersey cop. Yeah. No matter where you were in this country.
Oh, sure.
You shot a film in Alaska. Hey, what's going on? It's Joey Boombats. Yeah, I'm a detective.
And that was him.
Yeah, he has that great line when everything is, they're shooting up and everything, and I'm like, where are all the cops? Where's all the backup? And then he has that line. He's like, I think I should call backup. At one point.
That's right. That always bothers you, Nick. That there's never an extra cop around when you need one.
That's Nick's pet peeve in film.
Where's backup when you need it? He had it. They didn't believe him. They're like, oh, come on, Lubick. All right, come on, Lubick.
They went, hold it. Now say it, Lubick. Now say it. Nick's waiting.
So when you've got an ensemble cast like that, and even James Cypher as Man at Arms, I really was kind of paying attention to him because again, everybody took this seriously.
Absolutely,
and that is the difference between high camp. Like when you're doing camp for camp, you're there to chew up the scenery.
Right.
Everybody took this seriously, and I think that's what lends the. I think that's what gives the movie its heart. Is that they were everybody was invested in it. They were invested. It was being positioned as the Star Wars of the '80s. So it's like, let's bring our A games because this could be something. It just turns out that the studio was just a bunch of bums. But
that's why
like Roland said, we can't say enough about Langella.
Right? No, it's amazing.
The lines he had too.
He delivered them well.
He is. He-Man is the loneliness of good. Equal to the loneliness of evil.
Yeah, and he's
great stuff. I mean, great lines. I'm like,
it's Shakespeare. Like he's like thespian. He's like full on theater, which is what the things that I love most about Star Trek. Actors of his ilk. Like he was on DS9. He played a Bajoran minister on DS9. He was Dracula. Without fangs, of course, because I guess he was too good for fangs.
He was sexy Dracula.
But yet Skeletor had fangs, which is that a thing? Yeah. I don't know. Is Skeletor? Is he supposed to have?
He's a skeleton, but supposedly Langella had a lot of input into the costume as well, and
the makeup worked really well.
He was fully invested in this. He's like, we got to get the cape right. He goes, I need a different. They went through a bunch of capes. He goes, it needs to fall the right way. I mean, he was really.
It
not showing up for the paycheck.
It showed. And then even his makeup was really, really spot on
he
his
could
face.
do a lot
so
with
many
his
close-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could tell it's the mask when it gets super close, but it was
still good.
It gave him enough.
It holds up, even though you can tell it's a mask.
It was effective in the wide shots, especially when they come through the portal, like we mentioned. Yeah. You see, like it looks like a skull there, and it's menacing, and it's like.
And he did a lot of work with his eyes, a lot of glancing around.
Yeah.
His relationship with Evil Lynn, the great Meg Foster.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to do stuff with her eyes. I think the director's like, look at her eyes. You don't need to do anything.
What you want to do?
Eyes.
Right. Yeah. Those eyes are piercing, man. Oh, no way.
So that relationship that they have together, it's she kind of worships him, and he's just but all he cares about is just dominating. She goes like, we'll have Grayskull or something like that. And he's like, no, I will.
Mine. Yeah. Right, yeah.
It's mine. Yeah, no, it's mine. Not yours, mine.
Yeah.
Just a great tyrant.
But he knew how to play fantasy. Like you look at all the best Star Trek, Star Wars, Peter Cushing, they all bring reality to it and passion. And the ones that are terrible, it's either they do it because they're embarrassed, like I think of Jeremy Irons in Dungeons and Dragons, or over the top, like Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face and the Joel Schumacher.
Those are paycheck. Those are paycheck.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Actually, Tommy Lee Jones did Two-Face for his kids as well, though.
But he was over the top.
Like, you got to do
felt
this.
like he had to be like another Jack Nicholson or compete with Jim Carrey. There were no levels. You could see, with Frank Langella, it was like he brought his A game, but he was also able to bring it back. Like it was a performance. Like he took it seriously, just like he was doing Shakespeare. I think you brought it up. That's a great analogy. It's like if you treat it like that, it's like it's kid stuff, but you bring it and make it realistic, and that's what comes through. I mean, his lines are brilliant.
Anytime you watch, we're all, I guess we're all, it's easy to say we're all Star Trek fans. So it's always cool to go back and watch, interviews with these actors and how hard it must have been to look at the script and say, I got to say this stuff, like Harrison Ford in Star Wars, like you could type this shit, but you can't say it, that kind of thing. And you got to give these guys credit, man. It's yes, it's work. It's a job. They take the work seriously. They're getting, they have to put food on the table, so they got to bring their A game. And this is a movie that shows that. I think,
it does.
Not just Langella, but other, some of the other factors as well. Chelsea Field I thought was great in it.
Yeah, my big problem with Chelsea Field, Attila, the way she points her gun.
Yeah,
she kind of holds it like this when she's aiming at somebody. It's like that's not how you hold like a laser. Like,
she's supposed to be
holding like what you think somebody holds a gun. I was like,
yeah.
They could have built up on that, but I think like we were saying, we're all pointing it out. Like Frank Langella was sort of like the anchor for it all, so everything sort of revolved around him to make it as good for him. And then you take like a film like Flash Gordon, which came out like I think 7 years before this.
Yeah,
and this is very reminiscent of that style too, bringing that cartoon. Sort of, working through, fish out of water. Except it was reversed.
And you had
Max von Sydow took the role of Ming seriously as well. That's what makes that. Like I said, what you
Timothy Dalton, as Prince Baron. He, and of course the guy that Peter Weingart played Clytus. I mean, they all, these guys are theater actors. They're,
I mean, in some instances, you can polish a turd. I mean, like if you got people that, honestly, like if you're committed to it, and that's why I wanted us to relook at this film.
Yeah.
With fresh eyes and kind of like, everybody pokes holes in it, but I think there's, and like I said in the beginning, I think it's a flawed masterpiece. It was undone by forces that were out of their control.
Mm-hmm.
The actors gave what needed to be given. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I agree with you on that.
That's
a good way to look at it, definitely. And like a rewatching did help. I sat down through the whole thing one watch.
Yeah. I watched it twice. I'm actually, the more I'm watching this film, I'm starting to fall in love with it. Like it's got a certain charm. It's got a certain corny. It's got like a lot of heart, and that's what I'm appreciating about the film.
Yeah,
is that there's a lot of heart there. It's not a perfect film. I'm not saying this is Citizen Kane in space, but there's I can appreciate the work that these actors. They took it seriously, so I'm thinking, well, why don't I give it a serious look then? If it was played for laughs like other films, it's like, okay, you go in with that. But
I think a lot of the movies from the 80s had that same quality, like sort of quality in the sense. But this is why we love the old stuff, right? Because we're, before the age of CG came in and special effects things started looking better. Something got lost in the translation there. It was the acting took a back seat in my humble opinion. I feel like nobody's really bringing that A game because now it's a visual thing. Now, the special effects will do the work, I honestly feel that way in a lot of films, including things like Avatar,
I can't watch the second one. I can't. I tried.
I'm not even bothering.
I'm not. I saw like 3 minutes of it.
It's going to be number one without my $13.
Yeah, let it go overseas.
They're not going to miss my $13.
No.
He wasn't.
He said, you're saying like that time is very interesting because it is, like you said, is very much an actor's realm where movies were changing. They were going to the sci-fi realm, and there was still actors and ensembles. And I mean, it was all reinterpretations of Shakespeare and Greek tragic plays. That's everything that came forward. And now it's more where the CGI or the planned CGI effect is part of the ensemble. And
it reminded me a lot of.
There's only so much you can share on the screen.
That's right.
Yeah.
What I loved about this that maybe doesn't get enough credit, they jumped right into the action. This wasn't an origin story.
Yeah.
Skeletor and He-Man have been fighting for ages, right? It's like,
told you, bad bear.
So this is always been about us
in high school.
You don't need if they reboot Superman, they're going to start from the beginning again. It's like you don't need to do that. Yeah. Just jump right into the action. And that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
This is our final.
I think everybody that kind of went to see it took their kids to see it, and they didn't have to do that. So it's like the kids knew, because we got the toys. We don't need to know where they came from, So
and what happened towards the end of the production as well is the while they were making this film, the He-Man line of toys started to fall off. Sales started to plummet. So Mattel went back to the production and said, listen, what we said before about not killing anybody, and fuck it. Do what you have to do. They literally said, do what you have to do. Make this film because the toy sales are starting to tank and people are kind of starting to walk away. We got to get this thing out. Do whatever you wanted to do. Go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm. They couldn't get it fast enough. That's what it was. If they got the time, and one of the set designers that Eric said, the guy that designed that whole Skeletor's throne room, he's like, I made it with all kind of ramps and under tunnels and stuff for the big end fight, and we never got to use it because they ran out of money. Because they ended up to he get through over a ledge. It is a great room. It's actually a really good set.
It's
a really good set.
The
textures are there, the colors are there,
right?
The layers are there. It actually
the money is that the money's on the screen. It's just that the money ran out. They were putting the money on the screen, and I like the notion of Eternia where it's like sorcery and technology.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're using a cosmic key, and you see Skeletor has like an armband, and it has electronics on it. But then there's the aspect of magic, the enchantress, and sorceress, and so there was a lot of meat on the bone.
Yeah.
That they could have really played with, and it's just it's almost like one of the great missed opportunity films.
Yeah,
perhaps.
The only time you see Castle Grayskull is that painting at the beginning.
You
didn't have enough to kind of create a model for it or anything.
Right. Yep.
And they reused the in the beginning when Skeletor kind of goes on the hologram, he's like, "People of Eternia."
Yeah, it's that.
and then at the end when he said when he went back, they used the same shot, but they flipped it. Because it's the same guys that got their hands over their heads like they got captured, but they just flipped the shot, and the guys are in this. It's the same shot but flipped over. So they had to get economical with it.
They couldn't even pay background actors, man. They couldn't even get extras. That's the sad thing. The scale is there. You see the script is calling, and it's you got two people standing in front, kind of.
Since when is there nobody in a music store playing "Stairway to Heaven" on a guitar?
There you go.
Yeah, you know what? Even I'll tell you, just look at the IMDb. Whoever's interested, just look at the photos from the set, and they're beautiful.
Yeah,
and then you can rarely say that about a film unless it's a good film.
Yeah.
But some of these photos, the production stills, the behind the scenes, are friggin' beautiful.
Yeah,
they're really pretty. To your point, the money was on the table. They just couldn't get it all wrapped up.
Just wasn't enough to finish it. They couldn't get over the finish line.
I wonder how many changes in the script as a result of the money running out that they had to, settle for something. They had to do that. They had to change,
That's basically what happened at the end. I think Gary Goddard said at one point he was filming and someone came over with a white with a white card in front of the camera. Said, "Shut it off. We're done. That's it for today. That's it. You're done filming. There's nothing left." So how do you day after day kind of working like that? You have to kind of be agile and plan. And he kind of saw the handwriting on the wall, and he said, "That's why when I filmed that shot of them clashing, I kind of stopped it there and planned for an effect because I knew I was going to have to come up with something else after that."
Yeah.
So there's a lot there. Let's talk a little bit about Billy Barty. He's
wonderful
treasure. Billy
of
Barty.
Course,
he's wonderful.
Marty Croft alum.
Yeah. Even in the Seamon.
He was in
That's right.
any 70s and early 80s, all the stuff he did. I mean, he's just amazing.
Yeah,
he was
everywhere in the 70s.
Well, he was our Warwick Davis, right? He was like the American. Yeah.
He was absolutely a celebrity. So for Billy Barty to kind of show up as Gwildor, he lends a little bit of that that character's for the kid. That's the character for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Is Gwildor. Like that, he's the one that's kind of thrown in for the younger set. He's kind of the guy you can kind of connect with. He's kind of like the, that kind of character, the kind of goofy Yoda-esque. They go into his little hovel. They all have to bend down just like Yoda. He's kind of eccentric like Yoda. They kind of.
But if I were a kid going to see a He-Man movie, though, I would have been like, "Who is this guy? Like,
where's Orko?
Where's Orko? Where's Merman? Where's all these where's Stinkor? Yeah. So I can imagine maybe some of the disappointment, maybe from the kids' point of view.
They couldn't even make the $22 million back.
Yeah.
That's a travesty. At least, They were actually planned. They planned for. I mean, this was a planned trilogy. The second one was going to be called Masters of the Universe Cyborg, and they were going to go back. Dolph Lundgren said, "I'm done with this. I'm not doing it."
They were going to recast
Van Damme.
They got Laird. They were going to get Laird Hamilton, who was a surfer. Very well. He's not Dolph Lundgren height. He's not Dolph Lundgren size, but he is well built because he's a surfer. They got some of the sets were built. Costumes were built. The plug got pulled. The director ran. He took everything he could from the set, and they made a Van Damme movie a couple of years later called Cyborg, using the sets and using all the costumes.
I was joking. Look at that. I was joking.
Wasn't a bad movie.
Yeah, they did. The film Cyborg from Van Damme came out a couple of years later, and that's where everything went.
Wow.
All the unused He-Man 2 costumes that they had started and the sets they had started on, because they were going back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then He-Man was going to be disguised for some reason as a quarterback, which is shades of Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
He was going to be like undercover or something, or alternate identity or whatever. It was you know what? Let's better. I'm happy with the one.
Yeah.
But we're happier with Cyborg too.
I'm disappointed.
The only Van Damme movie I ever saw was the one where he was twins. Double Impact.
Double Impact.
There was a time travel one that was pretty good. I like that.
Time Cop too. Yes, Time Cop.
That was okay. Time Cop. Yeah,
yes, I love Time. I'm sorry. I love Time Cop. Yeah. How did I forget about Time Cop? The great Ron Silver in Time Cop. Another guy. He took that role seriously, but he had the right amount of smarm.
That's right. Yep.
And but speaking of the sequel, like this had the post-credit scene with Skeletor saying, "I'll be back," right? And we never got
just like Flash Gordon, right? With the ring and Ming. At the end of Flash Gordon, the ring is kind of wavering and humming, and it gets picked up again.
Mm-hmm.
I think Langella would have been down for it.
He would have. He would have done this.
He did a great job. I can't say that enough. Just watching it with him.
His lines was great. I wrote a bunch of lines down that he.
Yeah, what do you got?
When the sorcerer says He-Man is still alive, I can feel it. He's like, really? How sensitive you are. Can you feel this? And like just disaster, you know. I love that.
And the thing of it is, too, is so amazing is that he screams a lot in this movie because he's a very soft spoken actor, and that's why I love that voice of his. He's got that sort of velvety.
Well, he put on a totally different voice in this.
Oh yeah, he's like he's like with the scepter. He's like always moving. He's like fast. He's he's screaming at everybody like that. That was like, wow, that's a powerhouse. He's really going for it there. Yeah.
Kneel before your master.
Yeah. It's great. I do think it was because he could just cover himself and just escape into this role. Yeah. And he really did. At least from my perspective, I was like, this guy really.
It's interesting you say that, Roland, because I'm watching a new podcast on YouTube with the two dudes from Enterprise, Connor Trinneer, who played Trip, and Malcolm, the English guy who was the security. And they've had several cast members from all the different shows. They just did one with Andy Robinson, who played Garrick. And he said that because he's a Cardassian. So under the makeup, it's a release. It's an escape. Because once you're under that makeup, you could do whatever the fuck you want. I mean, you could just, and he literally kind of said that. So he's like, with that makeup on, the possibilities are endless. So that's an
you have to
interesting
go
point of
broader.
view.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just an acting thing, is right.
Yeah.
Under that makeup, you need to go a little bigger to get through the makeup, right?
Yeah.
To get through that, and you could see that with Langella. He
I
kind
don't
of
know if it's big,
his is a little more subtle, but
yeah.
but you've got he's got to bring that kind of menace, and his voice is on. If you played a clip and said, "Who is this?" and you played a clip of just Frank Langella speaking in a regular film,
you wouldn't recognize him. No,
you would not.
I think that's the point. It's not so much that you have to break through the makeup, that you're allowed to not be scared about only being you. Because when you're a famous actor, they hire you for you. I mean, Stallone, if he got his slur corrected, no one would cast him again. Because he doesn't sound like Stallone, even though it is Stallone. They would never cast him again. Frank Langella had this, especially in the 80s. He had 70s and 80s. This guy was a big time actor, did a lot of good stuff with a lot of depth. Some camp here and there, but the guy knew how to deliver every time. But he was always delivering as Frank. And here, no one would have made that connection. And like you're saying, Eric, kids went to go see. People with their kids to see it. They don't know who Frank Langella is. They just know his Skeletor, and he decided to give him the best Skeletor he could.
Yeah, that's right.
And
that's absolutely.
And I think that's what my feeling with what he did. He brought the best character he could with what he had. And he did a great job. And I said, makeup, I know up close. Yeah, it's a mask. We know it's a mask. I know I saw felt over the nose. So you couldn't really see into the nose cavity.
Or Sharpie. I don't know if they filled it in with
a little Sharpie, like whatever it was. Yeah, that's what it was. I was like, okay. But the way he moved the mask with his face and his eyes, it worked. So that's
I actually thought that, Red Skull in the first Cap movie reminded me of that.
Very much. I made the same connection. I made
rubber.
I saw the same thing in my head when I saw that.
So I instantly like that though. Like, with Red Skull, it's like, okay, he could look a little better, but it reminds me of Langella in He-Man.
It's not too gruesome.
So I'll accept this. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, you see actors like Gene Hackman who refuse to shave their head to play Lex Luthor, and yet Frank Langella is willing to just cover his whole face and everything and just still give it his best performance. That's what I like, And I'm not knocking Gene Hackman because he was excellent as Lex Luthor. Of course, but it's like shave the damn head.
He should have shaved his head.
They made a nice running gag with the toupees, so I thought that was cool.
One of the great Skeletor lines is Man at Arms is like, "You dare threaten her life? I dare anything." Like he's so he's just like so like. Well, like I said, he's got such great actors to bounce, except for Dolph, but anybody else, even Meg Foster, just bouncing off of her and just kind of his disappointment. Like every time, did you capture He-Man? She's like, no. He's like, we're done. And transmission.
When Evil Lynn, interferes, right, and he goes, okay, you go with him. He's like, well, I wasn't suggesting that I go. He's like, then you shouldn't have spoken.
Yeah,
leave.
It's great delivery. It's great delivery. It's he's in the moment. I always say, I say it on my podcast all the time. Like when people do the work, he did the work. Yeah. And even though you think, it's just a silly movie, no, you got to do the work. And he really did the work. He did the work to make it the best he could.
Nick, do you think can we recommend this to somebody? Can we recommend this to somebody that doesn't like this type of film, and would they appreciate the acting of him? Because again, he's kind of getting a renaissance in this role.
I think anyone that recommends this movie,
appreciate this film for his performance.
I think that's how people recommend it. I think people are always like, watch it for Skeletor. This is tune in for his performance, and the fact that he is in this beginning to end, it holds it together. So. Who else could deliver lines like, I ache to smash you out of existence, to drive your cursed face from my memories forever? Come on.
And then He-Man's big response is, it's always been between you and me. He does not get.
He might as well. He might as well have said, "I must break you." Come on.
Dolph Lundgren is Dolph Lundgren is really a smart guy. He's got like a master's degree in engineering. He's got
a PhD even. Like he's a scientist. He's a straight up scientist.
Second degree black belt.
He was. You look at a good performance. Look at him,
but he's not a great actor. I mean,
look at him in Creed 2. I thought he was able to do some good stuff in that. So I think the director, blame the director a little bit on that too, maybe. But the writing,
the director's worried about whether people are going to get paid.
Yeah, and this director, he's had his scandals too.
Yeah, he's had he's had a little storied past, checkered past.
Yeah. And he didn't have the experience either. Like this was his second movie, first movie. I don't know what it was, but
yeah.
But yeah, that was the weakness of this movie. He-Man was underwritten, and he, Dolph Lundgren wasn't at his, his height yet.
Peak yet.
He was not the alpha and the omega.
Yeah.
No, not yet.
All right, let's talk about some. We talked a lot about Frank Langella, but I think there's a lot of great scenes in here that kind of stick out. Roland, what are a couple of scenes that really kind of? Obviously, it's very easy for us to say anything he was in.
Yeah, well,
outside of
honestly,
that, what kind of what did you geek out of? What did you geek out about in this film?
Well, I think the opening scene with Skeletor, and again, this is not really because of Frank Langella or the acting. Mm-hmm. I just think there was so much focus on that character that it popped for me right from the beginning, and at the end even. And again, I think he just bookends the film well. So it's that opening scene where you're in that grand room, and where it ends in that grand room. Mm-hmm. And that's where I feel the most excitement was, and the most, like, the colors of the film really came together, the characters, the costume design. Like, I felt like that's where it needed to be. Like, that's where it's not saying it shouldn't have come to Earth, but at least that the cohesion in those two scenes was the strongest. And I enjoyed those the most. That's like, I was drawn to it. Yeah. And I think that for me, that's how I saw it.
That's Skeletor's home court. Right? Yeah, he's like, that's his home field. He's like, I'm not in a giving mood today, and he's like, zaps that lizard dude.
I will put
everybody else in line. PDQ.
I rewound the scene just so I could look at the floor again because I thought it was so pretty.
Yeah,
it's like, goddamn, is that cultured marble? Son of a bitch! That is cultured marble.
Where did that set go? Did they repurpose it? Can I get some?
Yeah. I wish I could get a piece of that.
And anything else? Anything else? Kind of.
That was really it for me. The Courtney Cox stuff, I honestly, like I said, for me, it was very 80s, 90s sort of vibe. Mm-hmm. I didn't really, it didn't really mean that much to me. And there was some emptiness there.
Yeah. For Courtney Cox, she screen tested a few times and she showed up heavily made up, a lot of makeup.
Right. Yeah.
And the director was like, I don't want to, no, she's not right. And the casting agent's like, just let her come back one more time. And the casting agent called her and said, take it all off.
Yeah.
Because we're looking for kind of like the all-American.
Well, she's got a great natural look.
Yeah. And she did. She kind of took all the makeup off and came and they're like, that's Julie. That's what we're looking for, right? Is the girl we saw. Because at that point, she was known as the girl from the Springsteen video. That's what she was known as.
Yeah.
Did she do Misfits of Science yet at that point? Or
say again?
There was that TV show, Misfits of Science, that she did.
She had only done two movies. This was her second movie, and her first one was like a minor role. So this was like her breakthrough.
Yeah.
So, Eric, what do you got? You got some scenes?
I agree with Roland. I mean, it doesn't take much to create an alien environment, So when you see like a vast desert with a big star, like a night sky of like right above the desert, I'm in that. I'm sold. You know what I mean?
Give me 4 moons. I'm ready.
There you go. Some matte crappy matte painting in the background.
Planet coming right up.
I grew up with that shit, man. That's the stuff that I was used to seeing, even in Star Wars. Like, you could tell they're matte paintings, but that's Star Wars. We dare not, say that that's bad. But this, like the Wizard of Oz too. Like I think Dean, we talked about that with the yellow brick road, the mountains in the background. What's going on back there? I want to know. It's a painting. It's but I like that. I love backgrounds. So those kinds of things always stood out for me in these kinds of movies. And then of course whatever is in the foreground. If you could got somebody in a great looking costume, superimposed in front of that, it works.
Good enough.
It works. Yeah.
Funny you say that.
It absolutely works.
He was super. He was using that superimposed.
There you go. Yeah.
The end scene with the truck at the end of T2 when they were in the factory. It was still, there was still that. The practical. The practical effects were still.
Practical effects.
That was it. There was no such thing as anything else. Nick, what do you got?
Yeah.
Okay. Eric, what do you got?
No. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
You can finish.
Go ahead.
No, I like the background between, like I said, he jumped right into the story. So he didn't kill He-Man, because he was like, I don't want to turn him into a martyr. I know that he's got, but then when he starts getting drunk on the power, then he's like, I'm going to kill your friends, and he's like, but you promised not to. He's like, I lied. Like at first he was like, I'm not going to do it. But now he's like, but you could see it's the drunkenness of the power that he was like, okay, nobody can match me now. That's it. I love that scene.
Very much a Batman and Joker relationship.
Very much.
Like they're never going to kill each other. Like they can't. They need each other to survive.
But they just He-Man's mother is named Martha.
Yeah.
So I think.
What did you say?
Who's Martha? Oh my God!
Eric, I want to say,
as cheesy and campy as this is, they justify everything. There's rationale for it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's Langella putting that, because I know he improvised a lot of stuff too. So maybe that's him putting some. Okay, you got to explain why this is what it is. But there's justification for what these characters do.
Yeah, I can't kill him. I can't. Yeah, killing him would make it worse for me.
Yeah, until he has the
making
power.
him a slave would be just a prescription. Roland.
Yeah. Well, I was saying, Eric, you brought up Wizard of Oz. As I was watching this, I felt like tints of Wizard of Oz. Like this is Oz after Dorothy left, and the wizard. They had no wizard, and then He-Man and Skeletor showed up, and they fought up for the Wizard of Oz. Like when they bring the henchmen out, I was like, are they going to be flying monkeys? Oh my God, they're going to be flying monkeys.
There were guys on flying sewer covers.
I definitely felt
a little bit like that.
I definitely felt that with Flash Gordon. To me, that was like a sci-fi Wizard of Oz for me. Yeah. The colors.
I think this feels like that too a little bit. He came back home and they brought the evil wizard back, and just the evil witch back, and it didn't work out so well. He even had a good witch and a good sorceress, an evil magic.
That's true.
Magic.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of influences there, and some are not so. Some are subtle like that, and some are not so subtle. One of my favorite scenes, it's a Langella scene, but it's also with He-Man at the very end when He-Man decides to leave with Skeletor. It's like Skeletor says, "Listen, if you come with me and be my slave, I'll let your friends live." Right, so He-Man leaves everybody on Earth, and he goes with Skeletor, and then he's kind of bound, kind of like Samson and Delilah-ish. Victor Mature, he's bound, and Blade starts whipping him.
Yeah,
and
that was
there's
a cool
scene
scene
of Frank Langella. He's holding his staff, and he's kind of like flinching, like in either delight or he can't believe that He-Man is taking the punishment. Like he's almost like he can't look away, but he's almost repulsed by it because he's getting whipped, and there's the reactions of Skeletor. Of kind of like he's almost like flinching when he gets whipped and when he takes another lashing. And I was just like, that's cool. Such an interesting choice.
It is.
That the villain would be laughing and
because you don't need to do that. Yeah,
he was kind of
absolutely right. Yeah.
Like relishing in it, but then also flinching about it.
Well, I think he had a rapport with him, and maybe that's not what he wanted it to be.
Very interesting scene. I don't know why that his reaction to it. Like when the and he would like Skeletor would kind of like flinch as if almost he was taking it as well. Very, again, like I said, it's weird for such a throwaway film that there's these interesting like little nuggets that if you stay long enough and you kind of, I think it takes a couple of watchings. I think this movie takes a couple of watchings to kind of wash off.
Yeah,
like wash off the campiness and kind of get through that, and kind of like it's there. And it's a part of it, obviously, like, especially at the end when they open up the cosmic key and like the half of the Cadillac is there and the brick wall. No other time did any piece of Earth come with them, but when they needed cover and they needed a place to hide, Cadillac and the wall were there just enough, to perfect cover. But you know what? You take the leap. You with this movie, you take the leap.
Well, that's the thing. It's like this is why we love this shit. It's like because we, something like that. That's why we're geeks, because, us fans, we notice things like that. This is the kind of shit that people ask the actors at conventions. Why did you make that choice? Like Frank Langella said, like, why did you do that? Like, he'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, he probably wouldn't have remembered, or he would have said like, oh, it was just a, and if you really goaded him into the answer, he probably would have said, "Oh, you know what?" And he would go into this big elaborate,
or just make something up too, right? I think we as movie watchers ascribe so much more, right, to the performances because we connect. And like Nick said, and Roland, like, they're kind of showing up for a job. They're there to do a job, and they're not. They do this one, and then Frank Langella moves on to the next film, and then he's got to think about that character, right?
Yeah.
And all this stuff kind of washes away. But then people 35 years later are saying, "Hey, Frank, when you were Skeletor, what?" He's not going to remember, right?
But he might.
He's going to remember the broad strokes.
He said it's one of his favorites, and he enjoyed. Yeah. You can just tell he brought his. He probably was motivated, thinking about something, and it would be curious to see what he was, or that might have been a shot that he did for something else, and when they edited it, they just like, that looked cool, let's put it in here.
That could be. That could be.
Dolph Lundgren didn't like this performance at all. I don't think he liked.
This is his least liked film, and this is one of Langella's favorites.
I don't blame him.
The best hair products.
But I think you could see why. I mean, Dolph was kind of still. He was he was a journeyman actor. He wasn't an actor. He was hired for looks and brawn. I mean,
both films.
His debut was in View to a Kill, where he was like a KGB guy. He was there for just to be tall and to be Russian, right? He's hired for Rocky IV to be tall and be Russian
and not say anything, pretty much.
And his accent or his lack of acting experience worked for him because he needed to be a wooden character, and he literally was. This was his first quote unquote acting role. Right, this was his first really he's the lead. Everything else he's an imposing figure, but this was his lead film. And I mean, again, like I said, okay, he's not a great actor, but there's nothing wrong with that. He's developed, and as long as you're getting better, but he just stayed on the action path and never really did a Copland, Nick.
Right, I know. But he needed better material. He was perfect for the role. I thought. I think I wouldn't have cast anybody else.
Like I said, you surround somebody with the right team, and you're going to be fine. Like I said, everybody else carried the exposition for him.
Yeah. And if they want to do a Nordic Coplander, we could do that with probably.
What's that?
Dolph. We could do a Nordic Coplander or something like that, and we do a nice Nordic Copland with Dolph. I think you could do it.
So Dean,
like Insomnia meets Copland.
You pointed out that the supporting cast made it, did this for Dolph. Could we say the same for Tamora Morrison in the Book of Boba Fett? Where everybody's doing the work for it.
No, they did him no favor. There was not I don't think he had the Tamora Morrison is more of an experienced actor, and he's a good actor. He was in that film once, The Warriors. I mean, he can act.
I don't blame him for that one either.
He wasn't just. You know what? He wasn't given good material with Masters of the Universe. Dolph's inexperience. I'm not gonna say he's a bad actor. His inexperience was a liability, right? Mm-hmm. So by surrounding him with John Cipher and all these other actors that can kind of again carry that weight for him, and He-Man just has to react to a lot of stuff and kind of some basic lines. You got it done. You got, he like I said, he really worked. Like I said, they did ADR like 5 times. He did five times ADR until they got it to be passable. So I can imagine what the first stuff they were recording on there was like, how to be brutal.
And just seeing him smile for the first time, like, I don't know, like I was so used to him as Drago, right? So
But his own face, and now he's like, hey,
Hey. But no background, like no character building. Like that's
that really bothers you.
It does.
Does it bother you that there's no one no one lives in that town except for the main characters?
Not one person.
We got 6 people at the coffee shop, and that's it. That was it. 6 people at the coffee shop.
Nobody in the gym. Like the only band member that shows up for the sound check was him.
Nobody.
Right? Nobody in the guitar store checking stuff out or getting lessons or playing Stairway to Heaven on a guitar, trying it out.
Oh yeah.
That bothers me.
And then 5 cops show up. But let me put this in perspective. At the end of the Back to the Future was the same thing. There was nobody in Hill in Twin whatever it was called, right? At the end, there was nobody. There was a bum on the bench, and that was it.
Well, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
There's an excuse.
Everybody's home sleeping.
Thanks for blowing that up.
Okay. During McCarthyism, it was a communist town.
There goes my fan theory of Marty coming back to the future and there's no one around. Same type of thing, right?
But I know I see your point, but yeah.
There's to Nick's point, there's no one walking around like kicking a can down the road or putting money in a meter. It's like you know what? The streets roll up early in that town, whatever that unnamed town was.
When that pink car goes by, they're like, "That's the car." I'm like, "That's the only car that drove by."
Only car there. Only car.
Yeah, well, it's the only pink Cadillac in pink Cadillac in the country. B, the only pink Cadillac in town. C, the only pink Cadillac driving down the street. We can narrow that search down.
It's like Footloose for people just going outside. It's like no one's sitting.
That car must have belonged to somebody on the crew. They must have just bought it.
Clint Eastwood's pink Cadillac. They probably borrowed that from pink Cadillac.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like where can we get some we got a pink Cadillac from that film.
It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Bring it over.
We'll explain it. Don't worry about it.
Bring it over.
And I'll tell you, and the music store owner, that guy was like he had probably the saddest role for me. I was like, man, you have no energy.
He was in My Three Sons. He was Chip Douglas, or he's Chip Douglas' brother.
Yeah. Nice.
He was the littlest brother on My Three Sons.
Yeah, okay, Ernie.
Yeah, Ernie. He was Ernie on My Three Sons. Livingston.
Nice. Wow. It was a good cast, beginning to end. Good cast.
Yeah.
Although I wish I had a nickel for every time that Robert Duncan McNeil said, "This is for real, Lupic." He kept saying, like, every time, "This is for real."
Yeah.
Lupic, this is for real.
I like how he could just start playing the key like it's like some Japanese.
Yeah, he's the musician, right?
I didn't know we had a key master here.
What about the infamous tasted good?
It tasted good. It's like, you know what? It's one of the earliest advocates of vegetarianism.
Yeah.
His teal is like, what is this on these white sticks?
Yeah, that's a bone.
And her father Duncan's like, "It's a bone." And she's like, "Oh, you eat like." A little social commentary in there, like vegetarians in Eternia, like they don't eat meat. So Battle Cat was safe. I guess they didn't kill Battle Cat and eat him.
Well, they're not using him for leather, so we know that. It's very few clothes.
His silky hide was on Skeletor. Oh boy, I think we've advocated. I think people should check this out. Unfortunately, you know what? I went to watch it today again.
Yeah.
And it's gone from Prime for some reason. I watched it on Prime last week, and it's gone again.
It's on the YouTube.
It's
free on
YouTube.
Yeah,
but it's like every 3 minutes a commercial. Yeah.
There is no reason not to watch this.
And you can't even rent it.
It's for free on YouTube.
Yeah. So watch it, but you can't rent it. It's not there to rent anymore.
Check this out. It's you know what? Oh, it's cartoon. It's action figures. Yes, it is. But you know what? Put all that aside.
It's fun.
Like we did. We kind of put our biases or our preconceived notions from when we saw it. We put it aside.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a film that I think deserves that kind of, give it a watch because of everything that the production went through. And there's stuff on YouTube as well about the harried production of this film. And I think it deserves. I think it's an underdog in that respect. That it tried its hardest, and it wasn't the fault of the people on the screen. I think you had Ben Burt working on this as well from Star Wars.
I'm sure.
Well, there was you
got to give credits to the artists, to the people that designed the stuff.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah. I mean, it's just as far as those action figures go, man, where were those black Stormtrooper guys? I wanted to see those, as toys.
They were robots, so they could be killed by He-Man without getting Mattel in a ruffle.
Those look cool, man.
Mattel was going to lose their shit if somebody got killed or somebody smoked a cigarette or God forbid. So but
it's just fun. This is just fun. I mean, it is fun to revisit films like this. It's all in fun, and as the cheesier the better. In my book,
I'm glad it's getting some respect now.
Yeah.
To close out, it is getting. People are looking at this and saying, yes.
There are a lot of great comments.
It is not cinema verite, right?
No.
This is not Godard. Okay, yeah, we're not promoting this as such.
No, but if you look at the responses on YouTube, like they're all positive. Oh, this is basically the same stuff we are.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece. I remember this back in the day. It's nostalgic. It's it's. A lot of people out there feel the same way.
And I think this does benefit from a little revisionist history. I think some films need a second look.
Mm-hmm.
Some you could throw in the dustbin. It's like okay, it's trash. It was trash then. It's trash now. Oddly enough, Masters of the Universe. I never thought I'd say that, but it really grows. It's like moss on my back. It's like growing. It's really growing on me. I'm really kind of
this creep show.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's something about it, like the underdog. This film is like an underdog, really dragged and didn't make any money, and nobody really, everybody laughs at it, and yeah, you can laugh at it. But there's some gold in them there hills.
Absolutely.
Well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. I think we've advocated for Masters of the Universe. Don't buy the figures, just watch the film. Yeah. So, Roland Arucci, thank you so much. Ready Speaker is his podcast. It is a video podcast, so if you want to see more of his beautiful facial features and lack of hair follicles, that's available on YouTube. So go ahead and subscribe to him. He's available. We'll drop like I said in the beginning, we'll drop a link in the show notes. The Professor, Nick Leshy.
Thank you.
Thank you as always. City of Kick blog. There'll be a link there as well. So if you want to watch the video, you look at Roland. You want to read, you go check out Nick.
There you go.
Either way, you're going to get some great information. I thank you both for joining us for this.
Thanks for having us.
You guys seem to show up for the episodes.
It's all the interesting.
It's a trend. It was Highlander and it was Star Trek 2, and now it's this one. And I love doing these kind of episodes with you guys.
Yeah, likewise.
I really do.
Always fun to do. Always fun.
I really love to kind of pull some of these, kind of nuggets out that people don't really kind of like will kind of glance over. And really kind of putting a little bit of a polish on them and presenting them to everybody. So thank you, Roland, and thank you, Nick and Eric, as usual.
Yep.
Wearing his Yes drama shirt.
Nice.
Yeah. I went 80s. So, it was in spirit of the, I don't have a Masters of the Universe t-shirt. So unfortunately.
But you got a Trevor Horn t-shirt for some reason.
That's right. Yeah.
So you can find us on 3324 Podcast at Instagram and on Facebook. We've got a YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see all of us in Technicolor glory very soon. We'll post this as well. And that's going to do it. So for Roland, for Nick, and for Eric, this is Dean asking you most decidedly to please be kind and rewind this masterpiece of a film.